Hi, guys. Welcome to tonight's live chat. It's really good to see you guys communicating before the chat. Yeah. Hola, amiga. To you too. Give it a think. Muchas muchas noches. Muchas noches. Am I saying that right? It's good to see you, my friend. And buenos dias to those of you who are on the other side of the earth. And it's in the morning there. um, it's good to see you guys. Hope you're doing okay. Hope you're having a wonderful Friday. I feel like the first week back after a holiday is the hardest, right? And so here we are. This week, I think I've had the worst going back to work week, and it shouldn't be because I'm in private practice, but it is because it's like for those of you who aren't familiar with being in the healthcare profession in private practice, you have to go back or end the previous year by going over records, going over forms, going over cases, auditing and organizing, saying goodbye to, patients, bringing new ones in. Look, it's a lot, talking to insurance companies. It's so tiring. So when I had to go back this week, or was it last week, whatever week it was, I was kicking and screaming like a 2-year-old. I don't want to go. I don't want to go. So hopefully you guys are okay and you're doing well. Guys, let me know if you're having any issue with my audio or anything. Earlier today when I was doing sessions online, there were a little bit of issues with my mic, but it looks like we're doing well. So we're going to go ahead and give it a think. Either you're like Googling these Spanish terms or you know what you're doing. I really don't know. But if you and I start, doing this whole live chat in Spanish, nobody else is gonna know what's going on. And I don't want to do that to you guys. You know what I mean? It's not fair if I break out in my second language and nobody knows what we're both saying. You know what I mean? I'm just being honest. So we're not going to do that. We're not going to do that. Give it a think. Yeah. Yeah. It's good to see you. If I didn't welcome you, welcome to tonight's live chat. Text 903. It's good to see you. Welcome to tonight's live chat. Thank you for that. I feel like we all need to, right? Yeah. Actually, Jovial, it's good to see you, my friend. Welcome back tonight, aren't they? Yeah, they are. Yeah, you just got to take it one baby step at a time, as Texan 903 just said. Totally. It's good to see you, Brandy Nuance. I didn't forget you. Welcome, my friend. It's good to see you. And Nancy R, it's always good to see you. Yeah, we're getting more snow where I'm at too. PA, Ohio, and I think Virginia. But anyway, let's jump into this live chat. Everything's okay on my end. This live chat tonight, guys, is quite interesting. Being conditioned, it is so stressful to go back. If you process within your own mind what life has been for you over the past couple of years, when you look at the things that life has conditioned you to be okay with, what comes up for you? For me, a few things comes up, and it's a little bit stressful because I can see where patterns of behavior had become not so healthy patterns of behavior. And sometimes the pattern of behavior could be overeating because it's a comforting thing. It could be refusing to exercise because you're stuck in a pattern of mind that says, you know what? I just lost somebody. I'm dealing with grief. I'm tired. I work a hard job. I'm depressed. I'm just going to go ahead and just do what I want to do, right? And having that mentality kind of becomes a conditioned response over time. And before you know it, you've gained 20 pounds, you've gained 15 pounds, you've gained 30 pounds, and now you're overweight, right? Let's say some of that conditioning also is being in a family dynamic where your family member has begun to or continue to abuse you, talk negatively about you, has also begun to um, drag your name in the mud, right? Your reputation within the family dynamic and outside of the family dynamic has now become trivial or trivialized. Now it's become a thing that, when somebody mentions your name, they look like, oh God, don't talk to me about that person because I know what they're all about. The conditioned response is now that that person has conditioned everybody to believe something about you, it is now hard for you to go anywhere and talk about anything because everybody sees you a certain way. Whatever the conditioned response is, it is quite stressful and overwhelming and very emotional to have to come to grips with the reality that a conditioned response is hard to undo. We actually, in the field of psychology, we call it extinction, right? So I'm going to put this in the chat box. Extinction. Am I saying that right? It sounds weird to me. Extinction? Is that the right word? I feel like that's not the right word. Hold on, let me make sure I have the right word. What do you do to get rid of a behavior? I think that's the right word, isn't it? Extinction. Yeah, but I feel like I'm spelling it wrong, guys. Extinction. There we go. So I'm going to put it in the chat box for you just so that you will have it. Extinction. And you know what that is, right? It's basically you're trying to cause a conditioned response. Here it is. And I'm going to put the definition in here for you as well. You are trying to, I'm going to say, cause a conditioned response to go away, disappear, or not hold as much of a power over you as it once did, right? So you are trying to really get rid of the conditioned response. Okay. Think of Pavlov. You guys remember him? Pavlov and his dogs. He had to condition him to respond a certain way. I'm not going to go into him. I'm not going to go into his theory, his science, his behaviorism, because first of all, I never liked it. I always thought it was the most complex thing in grad school. I would literally, my brain, guys, would go on pause mode when any of my professors would bring up Pavlovian behaviorism or any of his theories, and I could never understand it. It's like my brain would just go on freeze, okay? Because I was bored stiff. So I'm not going to go into any of that, but is his theory important for understanding how we become conditioned as human beings? 100%. But I'm going to let you do that on your own. I'll post some things in the description box for you so you can click on it and learn a little bit more about him. I'll post videos as well because I think that's easier to conceptualize. But so we try to get rid of the conditioned response the best we can. It's really hard to get rid of a conditioned response when you are in the middle of a toxic, dysfunctional family dynamic, and the conditioned response is this. You are responding to, you ready for this, guys? A family member that you don't want to respond to, you don't want to have a relationship with, you don't want to have to communicate with, you don't want to have a loving, equal, or mutual communication with or relationship with. You don't want to deal with them. You don't want to be close to them. You don't want to know anything about them. You want them to leave you absolutely alone. Don't talk to me. Don't touch me. Don't look at me. Don't breathe around me. I want absolutely nothing to do with you, right? You may have that made up in your mind. You may never want to see them again. But here's what's interesting. They call you on the phone. They email you 1,000 emails. They text you 900 million times a day. You don't respond, right? You say, you know what? I'm not going to respond. Not going to respond. Not going to call them. Not going to return their phone calls. I'm not going to email them back. I'm just going to act like they don't exist, right? Tuesday goes by, Wednesday goes by, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday hits. What do you want? Why do you keep calling me? Why are you texting me? Why are you emailing me? What do you want? Oh, thank you so much for picking up the phone. Thank you so much for answering me. Your uncle just died. Your uncle just died. What, you know, um, I don't know what to do. Can you help me? I think you need to go to the funeral. Somebody just said yes. Can you relate to this? Yeah. Okay. If I'm looking at it correctly, can somebody relate to this? Okay. I'll wait until I see something else. Okay. So they say, your uncle just died. I feel like you need to be at the funeral. And you may say, I don't know if I want to go to the funeral. And they may say, well, your uncle really loved you. Your uncle really loved you. So we feel like you need to be at the funeral. You may say, okay, yeah, I can. Okay. Okay. Kimberly McCracken says, I can relate. The foodieist beauty says, I can relate. Okay. Totally get you. Wait, if I'm losing the chat box here we go. Oh geez. Somebody else can relate to that. Lojo Han says he can relate to that. Oh boy. Alex Cecile says, oh, they can relate as well. Okay. All right. I thought I was seeing that earlier. I wasn't sure. Okay. So you say, okay, what is the address to the funeral home? And your cousin says it is 782 Moorbell Street. It's at 9 a.m. on Sunday, and you say, okay, thank you. You hang up the phone, right? What just happened there? What do you think happened? Is it guilt? Is it, I'm sick of you calling me every day, all day, emailing me, texting me, ringing my phone? Is that part of it too? Is it, we were once family and I do owe it to you to pick up the phone and see why you're constantly calling me? Is that part of it? So I'm going to put it in the chat box because there's an answer to this. So is it number one, we share blood? Okay. Is it number two, you keep blowing up my phone, right? Email, text. Is it number three, I owe you because we once had a relationship, right? And we're family. Or is it something else? What do you think it is? Right? I mean, really, that's the question before us. Why do we pick up the phone? Why do we answer a text? Ooh, Lojo Han says, Tamara, it's fear and it's cognitive dissonance. Okay, I'll take that. Brandy says all of them. Through the Darkness says all of them. Oops. Through the Darkness says all of them. Good to see you tonight. Welcome back to the chat, Through the Darkness. Rebecca Kalin says 3, I owe you. Okay, good to see you. Welcome to tonight's live chat. Okay, we'll take that one. The Lady Walker, welcome to tonight's live chat. It's good to have you. She says it's probably a bit of everything listed. Misplaced loyalty. Ooh, I love that. Echo Life, welcome. Good to see you in tonight's live chat. Says, yeah, all of the above for me. Maybe. Tort says, it's good to see you, my friend. Welcome back. Always glad to see you in the chat box. Tort says, all except for. Yeah, I totally get that one. I threw that in there. Yeah. Okay. That's a good one. Actually, Jovial says, I picked up because I wished it could be better. That's a good one. That's really a good one. You want to know what the answer is? Here's what psychology says. You ready for this? Okay, here's what psychology says. You guys have fantastic answers. And if you were in the workshop that I did last week on this topic, I would have gone with every answer that you guys gave. I actually believe that it's everything that we're saying. I believe that it's every single thing that we are all saying. Here's what psychology says it is: conditioning. We are conditioned to respond. When we are conditioned to respond, it is everything that we just said it is. And at the foundation of everything that we just said it is, right? What did we just say it is? We said that it is cognitive dissonance. Load your hands. It is cognitive dissonance and it's fear, right? Through the Darkness said that it is, what did I miss? Let me go back. I got to go back and see it. All three of those things, absolutely, right? Brandy Nuance, and it's all three of those things. We share blood. You keep blowing up my phone, email, and text. I owe you because we once had a relationship, right? All three of those things. I love what the Lady Walker said. She says misplaced loyalty, 100%. 100%. It is all of the above. Texan 903 says family can tug at the heartstrings, 105%. Texan 903 says in a way that few others can. We abandon ourselves for them, sometimes until we gain clarity and understanding. That is such a statement of wisdom. I think that was so well said. Thank you for saying that. I love that. Psychology says conditioning is the foundation. We're conditioned. We're conditioned to respond. Everything that we just said it is the second layer. Isn't that sad? So at the core of the problem is psychological and behavioral conditioning. And once we are born into this world, the moment we come out of the womb, we are being conditioned. What are we being conditioned with? Lights, sound, touch, right? Sensory stimulation, sounds, which is also a sensory experience, voices, lights, right? Touch to our skin, love and affection, being cared for, being fed, learning, growing. All of those experiences are there to help us grow and develop. And as we grow and develop over time, right, we develop the knowledge and the intelligence and the people skills and the intuition and the wisdom and the understanding of how relationships go. And we develop all those wonderful pieces of who we are. So at the foundation of all of that is conditioning. We are conditioned. That's why research says that by the time a child crosses that bridge from 3 years old to about 5, 6, or 7, most of the child's personality has already been formed. Isn't that interesting? Most of the child's behavior has already been formed. By the time a child hits 7, 8, 9, 10, you can basically already tell who they're probably going to be. And that's a scary thing too, because if you've got a 7, 8, 9, 10-year-old who's a calculating, manipulative, lying, cheating, deceptive, stealing individual, you're most likely going to be developing or raising a criminal, right, in the making. Not to say that some of those kids can transform over time, but they have a very difficult temperament and it's going to be a really hard road for them. So by the time kids hit about 10-ish, we can sometimes figure out what they're going to be, because again, most kids have already been conditioned by the time they cross that bridge from 3 to 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So, we're conditioned in our childhood by all the things that we're around, including our environment, the people we sit up under and listen to, even the teachers that we're under in our school system, right? Growing up, the peers within our school system, the TV that we're listening to and watching, the radio that we listen to and watch growing up, parents, the conversations they have, friends, neighbors, all of that stuff makes an imprint. And so conditioning is at the foundation. And all that other stuff conditions us. And while conditioning is at the foundation, everything that we just said is the second layer. And so we are conditioned to respond. And that is a scary thing, right? Research in psychology suggests this, that when we are threatened, when we are feeling threatened, this is an interesting point. So you want to listen to this one. Threat activates attachment. So even if you are sitting next to the biggest devil in your family, the biggest devil in your family, he has lied, he has stolen, he has cheated, he's manipulated, he has harmed you, he has done any and everything he's wanted to do to you, and he's gotten away with it. You will latch on to him in a moment of fear, panic, intimidation, and maybe death or life or death because of attachment. What activates that attachment and that feeling safe, even with that evil family member, is a threat. What's a threat? A threat could be as small as I'm going to be homeless if I don't have anybody to move in with. I am going to lose my job tomorrow and I'm going to need to borrow some money off of somebody. I am going through domestic violence in a very terrible situation where somebody has threatened to murder me. I have 2 little girls and I don't know what to do. I'm going to have to move in with somebody, and it's probably going to have to be my uncle, right? The threat could also be I'm going to be incarcerated for life and I need somebody to raise my son. And I'm a single father. So I'm going to have to trust that this uncle who sexually violated me can have my son because he's the only option I've got. Right? So that's a threat. A less dramatic threat could be that I have to live with my mother who abused me my entire childhood because I'm disabled, I'm on disability, and I don't make a lot of money. And I have nowhere else to go. Right? So now you have to attach to that mother who's abusive to you. So threat activates attachment. That threat activates that attachment to your mom. And even though your mother may be the biggest devil on earth, research says the threat of being homeless with nowhere to go on little income causes most people to attach to that even bigger threat, which is that parent. Proximity equals safety. This is why sometimes we reach back for the people we know we shouldn't, right? So proximity equals safety for some people. And this is conditioning. This is what I'm breaking down for you guys. This is a traumatized, conditioned mind. Excuse me. Excuse me, guys. Are you guys following? Have you guys jumped off the boat on me yet? Okay. Because I know this is kind of like some deep stuff. Okay. Proximity. Yeah. Yeah, it is. It is. Actually, Jovial says, wow, Tamara, these are some very real examples you're giving and very serious in nature, aren't they? They are. They are. So bear with me. Thank you, Lil Johan. Okay, good to know. Good to know. Okay, good to know. Lil Johan says super focus. Okay, good to know. Okay, we all know what we all know what proximity is. We know what safety is. So good. Glad to see that, Kimberly. Good to see that. So proximity equals safety. Somebody that is close to you, right, equals safety. Well, when we're talking about being conditioned, you want to know, why am I holding on to this very abusive person? Why do I respond when they contact me? Why do I respond when they email me or text me or call me on the phone? And I know that this particular family member or person is nothing but the devil in my life, right? They are harming me. They are controlling me. They are creating this very bad life for me. Why am I still holding on? Research in psychology suggests this, that proximity often triggers a part of the brain that causes this feeling of safety, even when we know that the person is not safe for us. So the psychology is proximity equals safety, meaning that there is kind of like this pull towards a person because of what the brain is choosing. So there is a pull in the brain. So I'm going to say there is a pull in the brain towards people we are familiar with. Okay. There is almost this process where the brain chooses the safe person, right? The brain automatically chooses that quote unquote safe person. And it doesn't have to be the literal safe person, right? Because we know that if you are in a family dynamic where your father is a narcissist and all he ever does is judge you, harm you, critique you, manipulate you, and use you, right? If you have a father who only does those things, then you and I both know that he's not there to love you and create this wall of safety around you. As a matter of fact, he is there to create a barrier for you and to make life difficult. But because you have lived in proximity with him, and because he is not a new devil in your life, he's an old devil, and you understand his footsteps, you can kind of predict him. He's predictable, right? That kind of familiarity is easier for you to navigate than it is to try to navigate a new devil, right? So in a sense, the brain says, choose him, choose him. Don't choose him because you don't know anything about him. It's hard to figure him out, but choose him because he makes a lot of sense and you understand him and he's predictable, right? So proximity equals safety. And what the brain does is it X's out the new people. It X's out the people that, you know, you're going to have to try to figure out. And it brings in the people that you know are already bad for you, but it feels safer, right? The brain doesn't distinguish evil versus good. It never does. So I'm going to put in here, the brain doesn't distinguish between good versus evil, right? It just doesn't. That's your intuition. That's your spiritual mind. That's your spiritual and existential mind. The brain doesn't have the spiritual knowledge or intuition or wisdom to distinguish between good and evil. What it does is it makes categorizations, it weighs knowledge and data, right? But the brain has no ability to determine what's good and what's evil per se or necessarily. So all the brain can do is choose proximity or similarities or categorize things. And so that narcissistic father that's sitting over there, the brain is pulling you in his direction. So when he texts you, emails you, or calls you, you look at that information, you look at your phone and you say, you know what? This guy, Bob, who's been blowing up my phone from that dating site, I don't know if I want to deal with Bob. Bob's a little weird. Never mind. You know, I think what I'm going to do instead is answer my unstable father who keeps asking me to borrow, he needs to borrow some money for me. And you go ahead and you text your dad back and you totally block Bob, right? Because dad is predictable. You've had a close relationship with dad. You're not close in a loving relationship, but he's close in proximity. The brain decides to pull you in dad's direction because proximity in the brain equals safety. Does that make sense? So it's more of a transactional thing than it is an emotional thing, right? And so we would call this kind of like a attachment that is maintained by danger plus relief, so you're kind of attached to dad because there's this cycle of danger and relief. So traumatic bonding. Can I say that? Traumatic bonding, it's like, your dad is evil at times and very dangerous and very cold and very manipulative, but he also can be very nice too. You know what we call this? We call this, you ready for this? We call it the slot machine. What do we call this again? It's called the slot machine behavior. I had to think about it for a second. The slot machine behavior. And that's when the person goes in and out of kindness and abuse, kindness and darkness, right? So it's kind of like this the person goes in and out of kindness and abusive behavior, right? Traumatic bonding. That's really what it is. Slot machine behavior, you know? And this is what happens when you are conditioned to respond. In traumatic bonding, in slot machine behavior, if you will, traumatic bonding and slot machine behavior causes a conditioned response. You are being conditioned. You know, consider yourself to be kind of like the clay that a potter is using to create utensils. You know, think about a potter. You've seen them, right? They sit in front of this wheel, right? And they push the gas pedal and they put the clay on the wheel, right? And I love how they have like their wet hands and they take and they mold the clay. They know just the right amount. I don't know if you've been up close and personal with a potter, but when I've been there in my past, when I was in college, I had an assignment to do. And I remember standing next to a potter and she was showing me how she prepares all her materials. And I thought, you guys are so creative because I would never think to do any of this. They are truly artists, you know? So she sat down, you know, she put her foot on the gas pedal. She knows just how fast she needs to take the machine. She knows how much gas to give it, you know, how much she needs to press the pedal, you know, and she's carving out this really cool bowl, you know, and she knows how to thin it out, how to make it thick in some areas. And, you know, and I'm looking, thinking, wow, that is so creative. And then when she's done, you see this beautiful creation of art, you know, and it's something that I just wouldn't be able to get up there and do. So she has wonderful patience, or whoever's creating this thing. That's kind of what you are, you know. And for the person who is conditioning you, for the family member who is toxic and dysfunctional and unhealthy and they are conditioning you, that's exactly what they're doing, right? They are molding you a little at a time. And that's why we call it slot machine behavior, because they're doing the same thing to you over and over and over again. And if they continue to do the same thing to you over and over and over again, and sometimes you may not even be able to see that they're doing the same thing to you over and over and over again. So what happens when something repetitively continues without your awareness? Well, you become this conditioned thing that they have now created, which means they can now manipulate you, control you, right? They now have this expert understanding of your thoughts, feelings, behaviors, right? They're also ahead of you sometimes in how they perceive you and how they influence you. That's the word I'm looking for. Sometimes they're also ahead of you in terms of understanding you. They may understand you better than you because they've had a lot of time to psychoanalyze you, watch you, manipulate you, right? So in a sense, it's a very kind of dark psychological and manipulative road that they have taken, and you're on it with them, because they're not just there to get what they want. They are there to manipulate you. That proximity to you is a dark one, right? Conditioning you means I'm taking full control of you. Self-erasure is happening. Okay? Self-erasure. Have you ever heard that word? I know you have. Self-erasure, which is the process by which you erase every ounce of who you are. That's exactly what they're trying to do. They're trying to erase every aspect of who you are. Self-erasure is exactly where they want you to be. And self-erasure means safety for them. Before we go to the chat box, I'm going to give you a loop, because when you are being conditioned by manipulative dysfunctional family, or the manipulative dysfunctional member of that family, there is a loop, and it is called a conditioned response loop. And this conditioned response loop, Kimberly McCracken says, I've lived it. Yeah, I'm sure you have. I think a lot of you lived it. I think a lot of you have lived it. It's just tonight you're getting the clinical language, you know? Yeah, you're getting the clinical language. The conditioned response loop is this, okay? And really, the conditioned response loop is a central nervous system response. It's fight or flight, technically. But here's what happens with this loop, okay? There's a trigger. We're going to talk about it a little bit later as well. But there's a trigger. There's this attachment alarm. I'm going to explain it in a minute. Anxiety spikes. Once anxiety spikes, right? It's that dry spot again, guys. Excuse me. The old rule activates. You know what that dry spot's trying to tell me? You talk too much. I think that's what it's trying to tell me. I'm a really quiet person outside of YouTube. I really am. Okay. A response happens, okay? Am I doing this right? I think I'm doing this right. There's a relief loop that happens as well. And the relief loop strengthens. I'm going to explain all of this, okay? So don't worry. GTHENS. Okay, I'm gonna make sense out of this, okay? So don't worry. Okay, so the trigger. What's the trigger? Well, let's think about this. So this is the conditioned response loop, okay? There's a trigger, a text, a phone call, a gift that you didn't want. What did I say? A text, a phone call, an email, right? May come to you and you never saw it coming. Okay. That triggers you, right? What happens? The alarm goes off. Okay. The alarm is, that person's leaving something. I don't want anything from them, right? Oh my God, I don't know what to do. Do I accept it? Do I not? Do I send it back to them? Do I not? What do I do? Who do I call? Should I ask my grandma? She would just go pick it up and give it back to them. Do I mail it back to them? Do I not mail it to them? What should I do? Should I throw it in the trash? Should I give it to somebody else? Should I give it to Goodwill? Oh, right. So then you go through all of that, right? So the trigger happens, right? Phone call, text message, a gift is left for you, whatever. The alarm happens. Anxiety spikes. Fight or flight is kicked off within you, right? So now you have to try to figure out, how do I calm my central nervous system? Because now my hands are shaking. Now I'm worried. Now I'm anxious. Now I don't know what to think. Now I don't know what to do. Do I respond? Do I not respond? How should I process this in my mind? What do they want from me? Right? So now your anxiety is up, right? An old way of protection is used. That's what I mean by old rule activates. So you go back to an old rule, which is an old way that you used to engage in protection of yourself. What would be an old way of protection of yourself that you used to engage in, that you know you shouldn't be engaging in now? Well, maybe it was, I'm going to run to grandma and talk to grandma about you and ask grandma to deal with you, right? Or maybe it is, I'm going to call you and get so mad with you and slam the phone down in your ear, right? So you know that I'm not to be played with, right? Or I'm going to block you on everything and you'll understand, right? So you kind of retreat back to old patterns of behavior that are not healthy. That's what I mean by that. You respond to them in some way, and it's probably not going to be a healthy way, right? Either way, your response to them makes you feel less anxious. So your anxiety drops, right? And then guess what happens when your anxiety drops? The loop ends. It's over, right? But somehow you get this positive strengthening of this loop, right? And this loop strengthens because the next time they come to you with a phone call, a text, an email, you're going to get upset again. But you know what you're going to do? You're going to fall back into old patterns of responding to them, right? And your anxiety is going to go away temporarily and you're going to feel better temporarily. But you're going to continue to engage in that behavior over and over and over again. And what is that called, guys? It's called conditioning. So what have they done to you? I'm going to put in here, your constant responses to them conditioned you. And you can't even get out of the loop. And you can't get out of the loop because you've been conditioned and you're being conditioned in a negative way, right? It's so confusing, isn't it? And this whole idea of being conditioned just kind of keeps you bound, One last thing before I go to the chat box and just kind of engage you a little bit. There's something known as appeasement patterns. Have you guys ever been within the family where you have tried to appease the family in such a way that you feel like your own needs have just been squashed or pushed down or held down because you are trying to appease the family member who is controlling, who activates those feelings of aloneness within you, who makes you feel like you can't say no to them, that you can't put up a wall to them. Have you ever tried to appease a family member? And because of that appeasement, you have lost a sense of yourself, right? So it's called an appeasement pattern. I'm going to put it in here. Appeasement pattern. Yeah. Piano lady, it's good to see you. Welcome back tonight. A piano lady says, yes, people pleasing. Yes. Flower 2462, welcome to tonight's live chat, says yes. Fluffy a Falconite says, oh yes, used to placate. Yep, absolutely. Good to see you. Welcome back tonight. Good to see you, Sarah Kinston. Keyston, I always mess that up. Forgive me for that. It's good to see you. Yeah, so everybody's saying yes, they've done this before. So it's called the appeasement pattern. And it is people pleasing. In a scary way, it is a brain response. So it's a brain response to trauma and conditioning. And it's a wired response. We call it a wired response. You know why? It's a wired response because the brain is wired to respond in that way. Neuroscience. One study that I looked at, I'm going to post it after we sign off. One study in an article on the neuroscience of proximity, safety, and being close to different, humans, being close to each other. It suggested that proximity, or I'll put it this way, appeasement, or being a people pleaser, or having to constantly get some kind of social approval, the brain is wired to connect with other people. And because of that, we can hardly stand being rejected. So the brain constantly wants to feel safe. And how do we feel safe? We feel safe when we are interconnected with other people. So that's why we call it a wired response. The brain says we are not interconnected if we are not pleasing. And if we are not people pleasing, and if we are not interconnected, then something's wrong. And so the brain is constantly searching for connection. And that's why we people please. Sadly, we tend to people please when we are wrapped up in the cycle of abuse. And that is not a good thing. It's just not a good thing. But it's hard for the brain to determine, is this an abusive situation or is this a normal situation? So we end up in that cycle of abuse or that bad family situation, and we can't stop people pleasing. You just can't snap your finger and say, you know what, we're going to stop people pleasing today. It's not that easy because the brain is wired. It is conditioned to respond. For those of you who know me well, I talked about this a couple months ago or a couple weeks ago, and I said I had a t-shirt from a psychological organization that I was with in college years ago. And my t-shirt said, hug me, I'm conditioned to respond. And I wore that t-shirt all the time on campus. And I would get hugs from people all the time. Because really what my funny humor at the time was I am conditioned to respond. If you hug me, I will hug you back because I'm just a hugger and I am conditioned to respond. And that is really the reality of being conditioned. If you are conditioned a certain way, you are going to respond that way. If the brain is conditioned to be interconnected, you're going to respond that way. And if that means that you're going to be conditioned to respond to an abusive family dynamic, it's going to be hard for you to step out of that and run the other direction. You're going to respond to that text. You're going to want to respond to that email. You're going to want to pick up that phone, right? You're going to want to reach back for Aunt Susu and pull her up here to come and visit you, sadly. And you're not going to always be able to see that your attachment to your family still exists, right? Doesn't mean anything's wrong with you. Doesn't mean that you're overly attached. Doesn't mean that you're not being no contact. It means that you're a person of integrity and you understand that there's some bits and pieces of me that's still attached to a family that should be loving and embracive, right? It's complicated. It's complicated. All right, let me go to the chat box, guys, and engage you just a little bit. And then I'm going to go back to the chat box, give you a couple things that you may want to know about these family dynamics. And then I want to give you some pretty interesting physiological pieces to this puzzle. I'll put it that way. So that you can see what the impact on you is. But it's a physiological impact. So you're going to want to stick around because it has a lot to do with the brain. Jeanette, can I just call you Jeanette? It's good to see you. Welcome to tonight's live chat. It's good to have you tonight. Axe to Edge, it's so good to see you. Welcome back tonight. Annalise, I think I welcomed you. I'm so glad you said that. I very much agree with that. James Mitchell, it's good to see you back, my friend. Welcome back tonight. The Good Glow, it's good to see you back tonight. Always glad to see you in the chat box. Welcome. Hope you're doing okay. Queen Moses Soul, it's good to see you back tonight. Welcome. Queen Moses Soul says, exhausting. My time trying to talk to me for hours on the phone, and I struggle with hanging up even when I had things to do because I didn't want the battle of hanging up. Yeah, I totally understand. There may also I totally understand. I've been in situations like that. Can you imagine what we therapists go through? Sometimes you pick up the phone and sometimes I'll pick up the phone in my office and I'll say, hello, this is Tamara. And they'll say, hi, Miss Tamara. My name is Carol, and I'm calling to see if I can get my son into therapy. And I'll say, oh, yes, yeah, I have a good 15 minutes that I can spend on the phone with you. Can I make sure that I accept her policy first? And she'll say, yeah. And she'll tell me, and I'll say, great, I do accept your insurance, so we're good there. Oh, wonderful, because Dr. Caruso referred us to you. And I'll say, oh, great, we do a lot of work together. And yeah. And then I'll say, can you just give me a brief synopsis of what's going on? Why do I even ask that? Right? Why do I even ask that? I don't even know. And that brief synopsis that I've asked for turns into about 3 hours, right? And then I have to be like, okay, we need to end the phone call. So, I understand that. And sometimes you do, right? Queen Moses Soul, you just want to be like, so I get that. But here's what I say. You can definitely fit in there. I don't know if this would be helpful to you. Because our scenarios are definitely different. My scenario is a more business scenario. Your scenario sounds like it may be more family-based or emotionally based. If they're exhausting your time, I would definitely squeeze a word in there and just be like, look, I have 5 more minutes to talk about this. And if they go over 5 minutes, that's when I would be like, okay, I'm hanging up. You know, it's exhausting though, right? It's exhausting. It's exhausting. Jeanette, happy new year to you too. Welcome back. It's good to see you. All right. Jinbo, it's good to see you back here as well. Welcome. Hope you're having a good Friday so far. Yeah, good question. Is it Hebe's? Can I say Hebe's? Welcome to the channel. It's good to have you. Hebe's asks a pretty good question. This is a hard one. Hebe says, how do you end the cycle of blocking them? Perpetuates it. I'm not sure I know what you mean. Let me process this for a second. How do you end the cycle of blocking them? Yeah. So do you mean the cycle of blocking them on social media? Do you mean the cycle of blocking them on email? If you're blocking and unblocking, I'm going to take it to mean that. So if you're blocking and unblocking, right, then there should be no cycle, right? So a lot of my families that come and see me for therapy, they will go through this perpetual cycle. Okay, wait a minute. Let me go back down because you're trying to communicate with me. Wait, because oh, okay, wait a minute. Let me go back up. Hold on. Okay, I may have to start all the way over from the beginning. Okay, okay, wait a minute. Okay, let me see this for a second. Oh, jeez. I swear, now I lost where I was. Okay, you know what? You're gonna have to help me. You're gonna have to help me get back to where I need to be. I am so sorry. I'm like, it's so many comments. I'm like lost in the comments now. I am so sorry. Oh no. Okay, so here's what we're gonna have to do, my friend. Nice. Hebe's. I hope I'm saying that correctly, by the way. How do you end the cycle? How do you in the cycle if blocking them perpetuates it? Okay, so how do you end the cycle if blocking them perpetuates it? Well, okay, thank you for reposting that, by the way. Okay, well, here's what I say. Here's what I say. Do you mean, so clarify this for me for 1 second. Do you mean if blocking them on social media, text messages, phone calls, that kind of thing? Is that what you mean? I'm going to wait for your response before I go yapping away. I want to make sure so I don't give you the wrong. Tell me, because I don't want to start. I don't want to I don't want to say anything and it's the wrong direction. So how do you in the cycle of blocking them perpetuates it? It makes sense, but do you mean blocking them by text, phone, that kind of thing? Is that what you mean? Yeah, I love Scene 68. Thank you for saying that. Scene 68, welcome to tonight's live chat. It's really good to have you tonight. Scene 68 says blocking doesn't work with them. It doesn't work with narcs. They always find a way. I very much agree with that. I very much agree with that. Lord Johan says you have to move to a different state and go ghost. Yeah. Here's what I'm going to say to you, Hebe's. I'm going to wait until I see your comment come up. I wouldn't necessarily block the individual unless you know that they won't know that they're going to be blocked. Okay. I'm just gonna say it that way. So if the other person knows that you have blocked them, and they have they are more likely to have an angry response to you blocking them, then I wouldn't block them. You don't have to communicate with them though. And you also don't have to block them. Does that make sense? You can kind of leave it out there. I have a client right now who doesn't want to deal with someone, and he doesn't want to have to communicate. He doesn't want to have to tell that person, I want nothing to do with you. Right. But he also doesn't want to have to block her. So I told him today, don't block her and don't talk to her. And so that's kind of like the middle of the road approach that he wants to take. So I'm going to leave it at that, just for the sake of time. But that's exactly the way that I would go, if I were you. Okay. I hope I gave you something to kind of think about there. Angela, it's good to see you, my friend. Welcome back tonight. Angela says, when a narcissistic family member intimidates you, you feel fear, and that's why you give them a response. Sometimes, 100%. Yes, you're welcome, Hebes. You're welcome. Hebe says, thank you. That answered my question. You're welcome. You're welcome. Angela says, you feel fear with a narcissistic family member, and that's why you give them a response. Yes, that's part of the equation. You do feel fear, and sometimes you feel pressured to respond to them. So you do, very much so. Sometimes with a narcissistic person, and for those of you who feel that you have narcissistic family members, you're going to want to listen up, because this is one of those small piece of this that you're going to want to know. Narcissistic individuals, especially the ones who are grandiose, they want you to listen. Why do they want you to listen? Because they think everything that comes out of their mouth is gold, right? They think they're important. They want to be praised, and they think that everything they have to say is golden. So if you give them any kind of sign that you are not listening, that is going to trigger them. But if they also sense that you are patronizing and you are listening to them to avoid a backlash from them, that is also going to rub them the wrong way. One time, in a session with a really pompous, rude, self-centered, I don't even know, there's a bunch of other words in there, kind of a father that I had years ago when I worked in a group private practice in another provider's practice. I was there to provide consultation services. And he brought his son in. He wanted to do therapy with his son. And I thought, how bad could this be? This is wonderful. They want to get to know each other. They want to get to be closer as father and son. Dad was a complete idiot. And I say a complete idiot, and I mean it, because he not only won up to his son every chance he got, but he minimized his son. He critiqued his son. He told his son very embarrassing things in front of me. He pulled his son out in the middle of the road, if you will. And he took every opportunity he could to just make this young man, who was only 14 years old, feel like a piece of dirt. And I told Dad, I excused the 14-year-old to the waiting room, and I told Dad, you are the most rude father I've ever seen. And I am the kind of therapist, I will tell you what I'm seeing. I'm not going to sit in front of you and act as if, you were this best parent, and, we can hold hands and sing Kumbaya because you're the parent. I am going to tell you what I'm seeing, and I'm going to do it in a way that is professional, but I'm also going to give it to you like it is. And I told him, I said, I think that you have handled this session poorly. I think that you are a terrible father for handling this session the way you have handled it. You've crushed him. He looks like he was just backed into a wall. This is not how you do parenting. This is not how you handle a session in front of a stranger. What makes you think this is okay? And, I said, if you're going to treat him this way, in a session in front of a stranger, what are you like behind closed doors? And, Dad says, I promise you, I'm not like this behind closed doors. I think I just may be a little bit nervous today because I'm meeting you for the first time. I says, what makes it even worse? Because if this is the way that you treat him in front of me for the first time, what are you like at home when you're comfortable? And, it was just horrendous. So, his son finally came back in the room, and the poor kiddo, he sat there, and, he placated dad and placated dad and placated dad, and he decided, you know what, I'm just going to say to dad, you're the best thing since sliced bread. And that was the wrong thing for him to say, because dad could sense with his narcissistic, foolish behaving self that his son was placating him, and dad blew up. It was so bad that dad went out of the office, slammed the door, the glass fell out of the door. The owner of the practice had to call the police. He had to pay so many fines. The list goes on. Sometimes a narcissistic individual, we all know about what's called narcissistic injuries, right? We know about those. Narcissistic injuries, sometimes we call them ego injuries. Okay. It's being hurt when something kind of hits home, right? And it scrapes their ego. They can't handle it. And sometimes that can be as small as you are wrong, or you lost, or don't do that again, or I caught you there, right? It could be something that small. So, telling a narcissistic family member, being afraid of them, showing them that you're afraid, that can also blow them up. But placating them, that's my point. Placating them can also blow them up as well, because sometimes they can sense that. They may be narcissistic, but they're not stupid. I had to learn that, just being a part of that father-son duo, Okay. Rubber Biscuit, who is really giving a think, but that name is so cute. Rubber Biscuit says, when we are vulnerable, we are likely to go back to old habits, like an addict, back to the drug. Yeah, totally agree with that. I very much agree with that. Captain Commenter says, I kept myself estranged from aunt and uncle in Florida because my twisted sister badmouthed me to them. I'm sorry. That's awful. That's horrible. Sambuca Speaks. Hello, my friend. It's always good to see you in the chat box. Welcome back today. Axe to Edge says, I'm on disability and they willfully threatened to kick me out. They even locked me out the house today, as usual. Oh, I'm so sorry, Axe to Edge. That should not be happening. I'm so sorry. Eminel Odell, it's good to see you back tonight. Welcome. Bear with me, guys, as I continue to scroll because I am behind. Dr. Right Life, I'm just going to put you up on the screen. Welcome to tonight's live chat. I'm going to welcome you. It's Rap Torx. Can I say Rap Torx? Welcome to the channel. It's good to see you tonight. Forgive me if I mispronounce that. Rap Torx says, keeping you off kilter to what normal is or should be. Very much agree with that. That's a very, very good comment. Bree, I haven't seen you in so long, my friend. It's good to have you. Welcome back. Ashley Egan, hello. Welcome to the channel. It's good to have you. Ashley says, this makes so much sense. Yeah. Sounds like it's like clicking for you. Through the darkness. Yes, I saw you earlier, said, thank you for the warm welcome. And you're very, very welcome. And it looks like it's hitting home for you as well. All right, let's keep moving. Mark. Oh, I can't think of your last name. Darn. But Andron, I know you're Mark, though. Now I know you're Mark. It's good to see you. Welcome back. Sarah Leela. Good to see you. Welcome. Welcome to the channel. I feel like I've seen you before, though. Annalise says, when you are the abuser, you experience regression because you fear. Oh, I'm so sorry. I read that wrong. When you are the abuser, you experience regression because fear of uncertainty, you go back. When you are with the abuser, you experience regression because fear of uncertainty, you go back. I get you. Yeah, sometimes you do experience, Yeah, when you are with the abuser, you experience regression because you fear uncertainty. Yeah, you go back. Totally. Sometimes you do fear the uncertainty, so you do go back to the abuser. That is true. Other times, you ready for this? I'm going to give you a list of what psychology says, and I've also seen this. I have at least 5 cases right now on my caseload who are dealing with domestic violence situations, who are dealing with family situations where there are a lot of emotional, psychological, and physical abuse scenarios happening. So here's some of the reasons why people stay. So I want to put this in the chat box, why they stay. You ready? Fear of losing a reputation. Can you imagine that? Fear of losing a reputation. I'm not going to leave him because I told everybody we were happy. Right? I'm not going to leave her because I told everybody we were going to get married. Right? Fear of judgment. There we go. We just got married last week, and now he finally has hit me. Or we just got married 3 days ago, and she has finally shown her true colors. It's only been 3 days since we said I do. That has happened. That has happened. Right? Fear of judgment could be the neighbors across the street heard us arguing one night. We had a whole big kaboom. The police were in front of the home, and we just got married yesterday. So fear of losing reputation, fear of judgment, right? Fear of feeling like a fool, fear of family judgment. My mom said she never liked her. My dad says he never liked him anyway. And I think he was right. I think she was right. But I will never let them know they were right. One of my clients also said to me before, I will never go back home. And I asked him, why? Why? You're just going to keep letting her beat up on you? You're just going to keep letting her use your money, run your money up, abuse you, harm you, hurt you? Why won't you go back home? I never want to let my mom and dad know that they were right. Why? It's my pride. Why are you going to let your pride run you? Is it that important? Yes. Why is it that important? Because. Why? Because I want to prove I can be an adult. Really? Yes. That's the conversation we had one session, guys. Yes, I want to prove I'm an adult. I'm actually going to put that in here. I want to prove I'm an adult. I said, well, you know what a true adult is? A true adult doesn't have pride like that. What? I said, a true adult does not have pride like that. A true adult says, I need help. And he just looked around like, oh, wait a minute. That makes a lot of sense. And next thing I know, he's back with mom and dad. Hey, Miss Tamara, guess what I did? I'm like, oh, my God. Are you frustrated? But so, I want to prove I'm an adult, right? I've also heard people say, I can handle this on my own. That's another one. I can handle this on my own. And the list goes on. So I'm going to say, et cetera, right? So there's a lot of reasons. There's a lot of reasons. And, some people will say things like, and the kids. I stay because of the kids, that's another thing. Donna Daniels, can I say that? Welcome to the live chat. It's good to have you tonight. Donna Daniels says, I do not respond to my toxic, narcissistic family cult. I totally get it. That's a lot of description there. I totally get it. My friend Smina, it's good to see you. Welcome back, my friend. Always good to see you in the chat box. All right, we're going to go back to the content here in just a minute. Fluffy Falconite says, toxic families also condition us for further abuse in our future relationships. Very much so. If you're conditioned to go along with the abuse in your family, you're definitely going to be conditioned to not only pinpoint abuse in your adult relationships, but you're also going to be conditioned to respond to abuse within your romantic relationships. Because here's what's going to happen. The minute you start observing those abuse patterns in your relationships, you're going to fall back into the pattern of being the rescuer, being the victim, right? You're going to fall into that pattern of being the one who's abused by another abusive person. And it's going to feel just like you're back in your childhood again. It's a very, very scary place to be. Very scary place to be. Okay. Julia Bonafide Pet Sitter. Hello, welcome to the channel. It's so good to have you tonight. Julia says, that's why it's important to decipher who you can trust, who really has your back. I very much agree with that. I think that was such a great thing to say. I very much agree, because you can't pull in that person and that person and that person and that person and say, all of you I can trust. No, not necessarily. You better figure it out. You better figure it out, right? Very much agree. Very, very much agree with that. One more person. Yeah. Yes. Fluffy Falcon Neat. Is that the term that we used on here? Is that where you remember that? If so, my friend, I'm so proud of you. You have been doing your homework from this channel. I also see Jekyll and Hyde. I see Cookie Monster Traders also using the term. Okay. I'm so proud of you. If that, I see some of the comments down there. It's so funny. If this is the channel that you remember us talking about intermittent reinforcement, I'm so proud of you. Intermittent reinforcement, we're going to go back to the content. Intermittent reinforcement, for those of you who weren't here when we did a live chat on intermittent reinforcement, really what it is it's traumatic bonding. It's intermittent reinforcement says that there's a period of time where I noticed that you love me and you care about me and we're wonderful this time. But next time you hate me, you talk against me, and you hurt me. And it's a pattern where it's a cycle, and it's a constant, intermittent kind of experience. It doesn't happen all the time. It happens every now and then. And it happens on an intermittent reinforcement schedule. And that's a really depressing thing. It's a really depressing thing. All right, guys, let's get into the challenges. The number one challenge that you are likely to see in these families, hyper responsiveness. It's going to be a little bit hard for you in this kind of a family dynamic to have peace of mind, to have stability, right? Because this family dynamic doesn't want you to have individuality. Remember, I said threat activates the attachment behaviors. You're going to hold on to that abusive person because they are safe to you. You know it doesn't benefit you, but it is safe to you. It's safe to the brain. And that builds dependency. It builds that partial reinforcement. Have you ever heard of that? I'm going to put this in here for you. Partial reinforcement. Partial reinforcement is when a person can be nice sometimes and other times they are not. So a person can be kind sometimes and even convince you they are kind, but not always. And what happens with these people? Guess what they say? You ready? They say things like, I love you, right? 2 or 3 days later, don't talk to me. That's an example of that, partial reinforcement effect. That's really what it's called. The partial reinforcement effect, right? I love you. I love you. And then 2 or 3 days later, don't talk to me. Don't talk to me. Don't touch me. I had a family like that one time. I don't know if you remember me last live chat telling you about that. The adopted family, they adopted a little girl. And the little girl came over and sat with me. She sat on my lap, actually. And I hugged her. And I said, Miss Tamara needs both of her arms. So you're going to have to go sit over there for me. And she got up. She sat over across the room. And I said, see, now I have my arms back. And I'm taking notes. That was my nice way of getting her off of my lap. But then she goes over to her mom for the same level of affection. And mom says, nope, don't touch me. You know how we do. She's like, I don't like people to touch me. And I asked her, I said, is this the way that you communicate with her at home? And she says, yeah. And I says, oh, do you think that contributes to her insecurity? And she says, I really don't know if it does or not, but I don't like people to touch me. And later she lost her. She no longer could be her adopted parent and play house because she just wasn't a very good adopted foster parent at all for her. But it's this intermittent or partial kind of a thing. It's kind of random kindness. I'll put that in here. It's random kindness, but it doesn't stay. It doesn't stick, The other piece of this puzzle is over accommodating. You can kind of over accommodate within these family dynamics. Here you go, take everything that I own because I just want you to be nice to me. I just want you to love me. I just want you to approve of me. I just want you to listen to me. Here you go. Here's some more of my energy and my time. I just want you to sit with me. Can you just sit with me? Can you just watch a movie with me? Can you just hug me? And so in these kind of family dynamics where you are conditioned to behave a certain way, to respond a certain way within the family dynamic, over accommodation is often in these kind of family dynamics because it's almost like you're starved. You're starved for affection, right? There's also a lot of submission within these families too. There's a submission to reduce any kind of harm. You kind of have to submit to the powerful figures of the family. There's what we call power differential. I'm going to put that in here for you. There's power differentials, meaning someone is always on the top and you have to stay below, and so you have to submit in order to survive within this kind of a family dynamic, and the family dynamic wants you to be conditioned. You've got to cling on to that unhealthy family dynamic, excuse me. And so in order to cling to that family dynamic, right, you have to submit. So they're going to make you dependent, There's a personality disorder that can develop from this. It's called dependent personality disorder. Dependent personality disorder is characterized by inability to make decisions on your own, inability to decide, small and futile things like what you're going to wear today, what color you're going to dye your hair, excuse me. We're going to wrap up here in just a little bit, guys. Excuse me. What lunch am I going to have today? What color pretzel am I going to put in my lunchbox? What shoe am I going to wear today? What shoestring am I going to tie first? What book am I going to take to the library? What book am I going to borrow from the library? Everything is a dependency. I'm dependent because of the family that I have emerged from, who kind of fostered submission within me. And that submission was fostered because I was being conditioned to respond a particular way within the family dynamic, right? There's a lot of splitting from reality in these families, and you may find yourself doing it, dissociating. The dissociation may start off as daydreaming. It may also be a form of forgetfulness, right? Where bits and pieces of your reality have kind of gotten split off, or you may be going through a situation like listening to a workshop, watching YouTube, talking to a family member or a friend, right? And you miss a big chunk of what has happened because your mind is dissociating, right? You may also find that you can't remember certain details because your brain can't hold all of that information. You've just been so battered and made to be dependent. You've been so overcome with trauma and confusion within your world that it's a little bit hard for you to keep up. That's a possibility within the family dynamic. There's always conflict avoidance within these families and emotional suppression. There's never going to be a free, open exploration of thoughts, feelings, or behaviors in the family. Emotions don't happen. Feelings don't happen. Behaviors don't happen. Thoughts don't happen. It doesn't exist. Everything is shut off. Everything is closed down. There's no availability for thoughts, feelings, or behaviors, you know? Unfortunately, the brain is just completely shut down in these families, you know? Um, you have to often, I'll add this in here as well. You have to often make yourself small in these particular families in order to survive. You have to make yourself really small in order for you to survive within these families, you know? And that's a sad reality. It's self-erasure. Remember we said that earlier. It's self-erasure. And, you know, that's a very sad reality. You don't have the space to just be you and take up your own space. It really, in order to survive in these families, you really have to erase your existence. And that is not okay. You become conditioned to go along, to get along, to be quiet, don't feel, don't experience, don't have an opinion, don't share your ideas, and go along. That's how it goes. Now, how does this impact you? How does this impact you? Here's what research says, and I've also seen this as well within my practice, and just throughout different areas over 16 years of being in the field. Chronic nervous system dysregulation. I'm going to put in the chat box because this is kind of physiological. So chronic nervous system dysfunction. That's the first thing. What happens with chronic system dysfunction? Wait, F-U-N-C-T-I-O-N. I almost couldn't spell it, guys. So chronic nervous system dysfunction. What happens with chronic nervous system dysfunction? What happens there? Your fight or flight system is constantly in operation, constantly. So we have two different systems. And I'm not sure I want to write this out, guys. I'm not sure I want to write this out for you. Do I want to write this out? You have two different systems. One is we as human beings. I shouldn't say you, like we're not included in that. Okay, I'll write it out for you briefly. We have a variety of systems, but here's what we're talking about. Ooh, this might be better. Hold on, bear with me. Okay. So we have what's called the brain, okay, and the spinal cord. And you guys know what that is, right? The brain and the spinal cord is the central nervous system, okay? So the brain and then the spinal cord, think of the back of the vertebrae. So the vertebrae, right? That bony structure in the middle of our back. Well, encased in the vertebrae is the spinal cord. The spinal cord is attached to another very important piece of the central nervous system, and that is the brain stem. Okay, so we have the brain stem. I'm just going to write this out just in case I need to show you. Oh my God, I spelled stem wrong. It's time to go to sleep, guys. That's what it is. 8:16 is past my bedtime. It's really not, but it needs to be. So the brain stem. So you have the vertebrae, right? So you have the brain, you have the vertebrae. Encased inside the vertebrae is the spinal cord, and then we also have the brain stem. Okay. Inside the central nervous system is two other components. One is the sympathetic nervous system, and two is the parasympathetic nervous system. You with me? So the sympathetic nervous system, and then we also have the parasympathetic. Okay. And one system is triggered. Okay. One system, which is the sympathetic nervous system, is triggered by something in the environment. Fighting, domestic violence, arguments, fear, anxiety, a school shooting, parents arguing, whatever, right? So you are triggered, fight or flight. I'm just trying to make sure I'm spelling everything right. So fight or flight mode is triggered, right? For the parasympathetic nervous system, everything starts to gain some kind of balance, right? So everything slows down in that system. Okay, so I'm just going to say slows down. So everything kind of slows down and it returns to normal. Okay. Now, here's what happens when you have a chronic nervous system dysfunction. The sympathetic nervous system never turns off. It never turns off. Can you imagine that? I'm going to show this to you. Can you make sense out of this, guys? I don't know if you can. Ooh, I don't know if you can. Can you see that? A little bit? Maybe a little bit? See at the bottom here where we have the sympathetic nervous system, that's NS, and the parasympathetic nervous system. You see that? A little bit. You know what I need? You know what I need, guys? And this over here, the nervous system, it never slows down. It never turns off. It's always on. Always on. You know what I think I need? I need to stop with these demonstrations. I need a whiteboard. I need a whiteboard. What do you guys say? I feel like I need a whiteboard. But here's the thing. The sympathetic nervous system never slows down. So imagine having a panic attack. Have you ever seen somebody have a panic attack? Have you ever had a panic attack? They're shaking and they're hyperventilating and they're sweating and they're just having this, fit almost, It's like your nervous system is going through that kind of a fit all the time. It doesn't stop. It doesn't shift. It doesn't change. It doesn't anything. It stays exactly where it is all the time. And guess what that does to your body? Wear and tear. It wears it completely out. It ages you. It tires you. It exhausts you, right? So chronic nervous system dysfunction. It's going to happen. The other one is the body responds automatically. It responds without your own intention. So that's number 2. The body responds without your intention or approval. Can you believe that? This is what research says. When you are conditioned in a toxic, dysfunctional family system, and you're conditioned by abuse, you're conditioned by dysfunction, you're conditioned by lies and deceit, you're conditioned by emotion dysregulation, you're conditioned by proximity, being close to people who are not very nice, who are not very loving, right? You've developed this appeasement pattern or people-pleasing pattern within this dynamic. Or maybe you've developed complex PTSD, right? We all know what that is now. And our brain has been wired a certain way, right? This takes a toll on you. It takes a toll on you. And so the body responds to the environment and it responds out of trauma. And the body responds before you have any ability to stop it or slow it down. It's like the body has a brain of its own. Maybe that's not what you wanted to say, but it came out. Maybe that's not what you wanted to do, but it happened. Maybe that's not all the alcohol you intended to drink, but somehow you just couldn't stop drinking. It became an addiction, right? Maybe that addiction over there started out as something you did because you just wanted to relax, not something that you wanted to keep doing. But unfortunately, because of all of the trauma in your life, the daily stress, and the strong addiction needs of your family dynamic and the genetics, it became an addiction for you, right? There's often paralysis around going no contact. That's number 3. There's often paralysis around going no contact. I can't make a move. Why? Because I am conditioned to stay put. Why? Because my family is going to judge me and critique me if I walk away. Why? Because I don't know what to do when I walk away. Why? Because I feel stuck. I feel stuck. So there's paralysis around going no contact. You may have an impaired boundary formation. That's number 4. So you may have an impaired boundary formation. What in the world does that mean? Here's what it means in layman terms, right? I don't know how to set boundaries, period. How do you learn to set boundaries? How you were raised, how your parents set boundaries, how you learn to set boundaries when you needed them the most, right? How you learn to set boundaries as an adult. So impaired boundary formation, how to set boundaries. If it's impaired, you don't know how to set them, right? So that's another thing that you may be struggling with as well. You may kind of sense that life is happening to you, right? And not with you. It's just kind of happening to you. So life is happening to you, not with you. Like, shouldn't you feel like life is happening with you? You're going along with life, but instead it's happening to you. And that's not a very good place to be. You may find yourself over explaining yourself in almost all situations. Over explaining yourself in almost all situations. I used to do that at times. Especially when I became a new therapist. Let me explain to you my reasoning. This is when I first started out. Maybe I was like a year or 2 into therapy, and I felt like I really needed to prove that I graduated, and I graduated with knowledge, So I would sit down with my supervisor. I was earning hours towards my licensing, and I would say, well, I did this because I did that. And I thought maybe I would give him an evaluation there because that assessment would help me understand this. And then I talked to the mom for about an hour. And sometimes my supervisor would look at me like, this is too much, but I had to over-explain and over-explain and over-explain. And sometimes that over-explaining is compensation, right? That's the other one. So we overcompensate. So we may overcompensate. I'm just going to leave it in there as overcompensate, right? We allow repeated violations from people who have shown us who they are. So we allow repeated violations from people who have shown us who they are, right? They've already shown us they're not right. They've already shown us they're deceptive. They've already shown us they are rude. They have already shown us they don't care. They have already shown us what they're about. Why do we continue to let them back into our world? Why do we allow them to continue to manipulate? Conditioning. We have been conditioned to respond. We don't have to, though, but we do, right? So then we allow repeated violations. We have to stop doing that, right? We may have difficulty saying no. I used to have difficulty saying no. Whoops. I'm going to say that again. Difficulty saying no. I used to have difficulty saying no. Yeah, I didn't like saying no. I wanted to do everything and be everything to everybody. And it wasn't a good thing. It wasn't a good thing. It wasn't good for my health either. So it's a lesson I had to learn over time as I grew through my 20s, as I grew through my early 30s, my mid 30s. I had to understand that, okay, you can't say yes to everything. You just can't. It's almost impossible, right? You may find that you are attracted to or drawn in by people who are unavailable. So you are attracted to or drawn in by people who are unavailable. And you know what I mean by that? Unavailable, friendship, romance, work, etc. You know, maybe they don't have time to be your friend. Maybe they're not interested in you romantically, right? Maybe they're not interested in you as a neighbor. But somehow you latch on to unavailability. And sometimes that's because you're conditioned to go that route. And you've been conditioned over time to go that route, you know, sadly. You may also collapse after long-term appeasement. So you may collapse after long-term appeasement. I'm so tired, I can't. I'm so tired, I don't know what to do. I'm so tired, I don't know what to think, right? And you just collapse and you don't know what else to do, but just collapse. You're exhausted, you know? And that's really sad. You shouldn't be that tired, but sometimes you can get that tired, right? I'm going to put this in here. Somebody said this to me once, if I can pull it back from my memory bank. She says, you learn who you are. You learn who you are by what others needed you to be. I'm going to put that in here. She says, you learned who you are by being what others wanted you to be. One of my clients said that, and she said about one of her sisters. She says, my sister learned who she was by what others wanted her to be. And I thought that's a really deep thing to say. I totally get that, right? Totally get that. That makes so much sense. Yeah, that you learn who you are in a toxic dynamic. You learn who you are based on what others have wanted you to be. You have absolutely no identity for yourself, right? It's really confusing to live in a family that has conditioned you to respond. They're conditioning your mind, your heart, and your soul. Get out from among them if you have to. Carve out a little room of space for you. Work on your own mind, work on your soul, work on your heart, right? Step outside of them and get some exposure. Embrace different people and things to allow your mind and your brain some space outside of them. I think that's the best way to go. Right, guys? Come join me tomorrow. Tomorrow we are going to have a very interesting conversation. I cannot remember what the title is, but it is coming tomorrow. Let me look at this really quickly. It is, I like to at least give you something to look forward to tomorrow. It is, bear with me, guys, because my phone is slow tonight. Tomorrow's live chat is on a topic that I don't see on here. I don't know where it went. Here it is. It is on, being ashamed of your family and the dynamic of family shame. So you might want to come back and see me tomorrow. I'll be teaching you guys some new concepts about family shame and the psychology behind that. So come see me tomorrow. All right, guys, let's go to the chat box. I just want to skim a few things and get to some of you that I didn't get a chance to talk to. And then we're going to go ahead and wrap up. Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's keep moving, guys. Brandy Nuance. I think I said hello to you. GNGU247. Hello, my friend. Welcome back. I remember you from a couple days ago. It's good to see you back. George Young, hello. It's good to see you. Yeah, George says people pleasing without a doubt. It's a terrible loop. I agree. I very much agree. I very much agree. Scene 68 says it's exhausting because those people you try to please use you as an escape at times. Oh, I very much agree with that. Very much agree with that. Yeah. Raptork says, being young, any emotion I had was wrong. Didn't need to be brought up, discussed, or anything. You can hear the groan. Yeah. Excuse me, in their voice the moment you try to make sense of it. Yeah, I understand. Absolutely. Totally understand. Totally understand. Bridget Burke, hello. Is it Burkett? Yeah, Bridget Burkett, hello. Welcome to tonight's live chat. Welcome to the channel. Bridget Burkett says, I too wish that I had never met my parents. Oh my God. They destroyed my life as well as my siblings' lives. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. That is a humbling and yet very scary thing to hear and say. So I'm so very sorry. Oh my God. That's terrible. It sounds like maybe they brought that on themselves. Interfaith queen, hello. It's always good to see you. Welcome back tonight. Thank you so much, Lil Johan. I appreciate you. You guys are worth it. You guys are so worth it. I know, right? I love that t-shirt. That was the best t-shirt in the whole wide world. Now, there were some guys that wanted to, give me a hug, and I was like, no. We're not doing this, but thank you. I'll hug you from a distance, thank you for that. But little kids and females were okay. We'll go with that. But other than that, and strangers, I only wore the shirt on campus, but it's no longer sold. It's no longer sold on my campus. That's how old I've gotten, I guess. Alex says, how do you stop self-erasure? Oh, that's a hard one. I mean, that's a whole other live chat, Alex. Self-erasure is difficult. You really have to have a strong constitution, that says, I have a personality, I have a brain, I have class, I have grace, I have me, and I belong here as much as you do. On top of that, you have to build your self-confidence, your self-esteem. And you have to learn how to assert yourself in different ways within that dynamic, but what's operable, I think, for right now, what you can do, I think that's what I'm trying to say. What you can do right now is build your self-image, like you're building a muscle, and slowly build your reputation over time, build your confidence, build your knowledge base like you're doing tonight, and just continue to build who you are. But this is a deep question. It would take an entire live chat, Alex, for me to answer that question. Raptorks, I don't know if you're responding to Alex, but you're saying you're doing it now. I don't know if you're talking to Alex. If you're talking to Alex, you got that right. Okay, let's keep moving. Rolando, it's good to see you, my friend. Welcome back. It's always good to see you in the chat box. Okay. Let's keep moving. Lil Johan, that's cute. I'm just going to put that up on the screen for people to see. Okay. I like this. Eco Life says, how can we, excuse me, how can we get out of imposter syndrome from this? Well, as much as I tried to realign myself as a creative professional, or even the cool things I have done, it gets undermined and I get in a loop. I gotcha. So how can I get out of imposter form? How can I get out of imposter syndrome from this? Yeah. Well, that's a hard one. That's a little bit of a hard one. I had a book over here. I don't see it now. Maybe if you remind me of this in the comment section, I can give you the name of a book. It's probably upstairs. And the book was very helpful to me. I did not struggle with imposter syndrome, but I did struggle at one point in time in my career with being very, very fatigued. I think I struggled with compassion fatigue at one point, and I had to take off an entire year from my career because I was working so hard. You know, I graduated college within 3 years, and I went to grad school for another 3 years, and I went into a certification program for 2 years. Then I got my license within 5 years, and I did all of this within a span of 10 years time. And by that time, I was exhausted, and I didn't have that love and that passion for my field anymore. And I was just out of it. I was so tired. So I had to take a year off to kind of rebound. So I haven't suffered from imposter syndrome, but I have a book that I went to a bookstore at the time and I got. So I will give you the name of that book. It may be helpful to you. So please remind me if you repost your question to me in the comment section, I'll be glad to address it there. Okay, Echo Life. That's a good question. I like that a lot. Actually, Jovial says these people who spend their time trying to condition someone rather than using energy to fix themselves are trash. Well, I don't necessarily disagree. That's a harsh word, but I don't disagree. It's a waste of energy and time, right? Yeah, totally agree with you. Totally agree with you. Totally agree with you. Dr. Right Life, that's funny. I like that. I feel like that's been me all this week. I'm going to be honest. Therapist or not, that's been me all this week. Okay, let's keep moving. I'm sorry. I'm so like all this week I've been so distractible. I really have. I feel like somebody that has ADHD, I swear. Let's keep moving. Yeah, I see you. JC for Life says, I'm back. It's good to see you. Welcome back tonight. It's always good to see you. Lemon Drop Lollipop. It's good to see you as well. Welcome back tonight. Tammy Nicely and Ellie Wynn. It's good to see you both tonight. Welcome back. Ellie Wynn says, we will encounter some form of narc wherever we roam. I agree. Yeah, I very much agree. If you ever go to a conference or like some kind of workshop, you know, you can scan the entire room and you're going to find at least 4 narcissists. You know, when I went to a conference with my publishing company, New Harbinger Publications, for a book signing event. It was the Psychotherapy Networker Conference. I think it was the 2024, 2023 conference. And I was taking a little bit of a walk and a break because, I mean, think about it, guys. You're doing a book signing, you're meeting people, you're talking with people, you're hugging people, you're shaking hands, you're signing books. It can be so overwhelming. So I was a little bit tired and a little bit drained. And I knew Dr. Ramani was on her way to give her workshop. And so I'm walking through the hall trying to take a little bit of a mental break. And I went through Dr. Ramani's workshop, and you should have seen it, guys. Okay. She had people up against the wall. The room was humongous. Okay. People up against the wall, people sitting in seats, people sitting on the floor. I'm like, oh my God, they really want to see her, don't they? And I'm standing in the back of the room, you know, just kind of, you know, observing everybody that wanted to see Dr. Ramani. And I looked around the room and I'm like, oh my God. And literally, there has to be in this huge room, out of this entire room, it had to be about 30 people in that room, if not more. There's about 4 narcissists in this room. or 4 narcissists to every 15 people in the room, you know? And I thought it's interesting because she's giving a workshop presentation on narcissists. But there's at least 4 narcissists in this group that she's talking to. That, you know, that's the scary part of the reality of it. And I really do believe that there were a few narcissists that even came up to me for the book signing. You know, I hate to say that, but that's the reality of it. You know, you run into them wherever you go. So you are very much right about that, Ellie Wynn. You're going to find a narcissist, even in the midst of an expert of narcissism. I'm sure Dr. Ramani sees it everywhere. Maybe she saw it from her angle. I saw it from mine, which is, you know, just opening the door to go in, just to kind of peek in and see, you know, what she's up to. And, you know, the room was packed. It was way more than, you know, 25 people in that particular room. And, you know, some of the people were just bogarting each other and rude and not very nice. So more than likely there were some narcissists in that group, you know? So you're right. You're definitely right. Okay. Actually, Jovial says, please excuse my trash comment. I just get upset when I think about it. I totally understand. You don't have to apologize. I totally understand. I totally understand. Angela says, you have to block narcissists if they want to invade your life. I very much agree. I very much agree. The issue is, how do I block them? How do I block them without triggering them, you know? And how do I do it in a way? That's a question for Dr. Ramani. How do I do it in a way that is not going to trigger them to react to me? You know, I don't necessarily have that answer. She is the expert when it comes to narcissistic individuals and how they react, you know. But you know, the only thing that I can say to you on that is, if you are dealing with a narcissistic family dynamic, right? Because I'm family dynamic, that's my area of expertise. You do want to be careful in how you kind of back yourself out of communication with that family dynamic, right? Because everybody's gonna cave in. They're gonna fold on you, and it's gonna be a terrible dynamic if you have a narcissistic family dynamic. Because grandma's gonna get involved in grandpap and dad and mom, and it's just gonna be a horrible dynamic, you know. So you really have to be wise how you block them. And how you kind of put distance between you and that narcissistic family dynamic. Yeah. Earth Fa 333. Hello and welcome. It's good to have you in tonight's live chat. Earth Fa 333 says, I just hopped in. Does the don't block without telling rule apply to someone who I have already gone no contact with, but they continue to violate the boundary? Well, let me see. Let me think this for a second. So does the don't block without telling them rule apply to someone who I have already gone no contact with, but they continue to violate the boundary? So here's the thing. I would block. Sometimes you have to block people and not tell them you block them. And that's totally fine. It's none of their business. If you decide to block Aunt Susu tonight on your phone, who cares, right? You don't have to tell Aunt Susu that you decided to block her. Right now, if she calls you tomorrow and says, is there any reason why you blocked me? You could say, this is your choice. Now you can choose to say, I blocked you because of A, B, and C, and you're not going to force me to unblock you. That is immature. I'm creating this space for myself, right? Or you could say, I don't owe you an explanation, and leave it at that. You know what I mean? Or you can choose not to answer at all. You're blocked. That's all. And here's where our communication ends. I have a video that I did a couple years ago on ghosting. So maybe I'll post that in the description box for you guys if you want to look at that. All right, I'm going to leave it at that. Earthfa 333. I'm going to leave it at that. All right, let's keep moving because we're going to sign off here in just a little bit. Sarah Kingston says it's a no-win situation with a narcissist. Right. Yeah, with the narcissist, you want to make sure, and especially in a family dynamic, make sure that you understand that you're going to have to be the one who puts an end to the problem. Because most grandiose narcissists the one who are, what's the word I'm looking for? More overt narcissists, where you can see that they are narcissistic. They put it in your face, kind of a narcissist. They don't mind arguing with you over and over and over and over nonstop, right? They are the ones who will argue with you, and you recognize right then and there you're arguing with a fool, right? Those kind of individuals, you know that you need to put a stop to it, because they're not going to. So you know that you're going to need to, you know? So, Brandy, that's so sweet of you. Wow. Thank you so much for that. Thank you. That's so sweet of you. That's something to be humble about. Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. Scene 68 says, my heart goes out to that child with a father like that. Absolutely. Doesn't it? Doesn't it? Yeah, exactly. Yep. James Mitchell, it's good to see you, my friend. Welcome back. If I didn't already welcome you, James Mitchell says, you need to put that down in the timeout for 8 hours. I know, right? Dad was a narcissist, by the way. Did I tell you that? Did I say it? Dad was a narcissist. He had it on his diagnosis. What I did, Dad wanted to become a client of mine as well. His son went off to college. He was 14. His son stayed with me until he went off to college, which he went early. Can you believe that? His son was a total genius. He was on the higher end of the autism spectrum, went off to college. Dad wanted to start seeing me with his wife for marital therapy. Can you believe that? I don't do marital therapy. I'm not a couples therapist. I'm family, individual and family therapy. And so I told him, yeah, we can do a couple family sessions. He's like, I can't, I don't know how I'm going to be now that all my kids are gone, And I said, sure. Well, before I had the first family session with his wife, and his other children, I pulled his records. And I looked back like 3 years, 4 years, and his therapist at the time had documented in his record a few sessions. So I pulled the notes. I pulled a hospital stay because he had attempted suicide. And right on the hospital stay documentation was narcissistic personality disorder. So he had a diagnosis of narcissistic personality disorder. So he was a narcissist, clinically diagnosed. They did the personality test that was needed to diagnose narcissistic personality disorder. He had what we call a psychodynamic therapist in the hospital, which is a therapist who really looks at the complex dynamics of childhood. A psychodynamic therapist really looks at patterns, relationships. I'm trying to find things that you guys are familiar with for me to, to explain what a psychodynamic therapist does. But they really look at the relationship between themes, what things mean from your childhood that can make sense out of how you're behaving now. So Dad had a lot of issues. I'll leave it at that. It is what it is, right? Regina Myers, it's good to see you. Welcome back, my friend. It's glad to have you. Guys, we're going to have to wrap up. I want to get to all of you, but, we're going to be here for quite some time, Okay. All right. I'm going to I got to get rid of that comment because of some of the profanity. Breathe, it's good to see you. Welcome to tonight's live chat. Welcome to the channel. It's good to see you. Courtney Frazier, I don't want to forget you. Welcome. It's so good to see you tonight. No Surrender. It's good to see you, my friend. Welcome to the channel. All right. I just want to make sure I haven't missed. Mega Lady Love, welcome to the channel. It's good to have you tonight. Mega Lady Love says, I used to have a lot of hard time in the workplaces because of toxic coworkers, and I'd another coworker, who always pushed for you to, aka stand up for yourself. And did you finish that? Would shame you if you don't stand up to bullies, even though she was the bully herself. So I felt the need to go at it with people. Not until recently, the Holy Spirit led me to see how I was doing. Yeah, that's so awesome. I'm sure there's more to that. I'm trying to get to people so we can get ready to wrap up. I think it's a wonderful thing when your intuition, when God can guide you and show you where you are wrong, can convict you, and you can say, whoa, wait a minute. Let me go back to that. Let me go back to something. Let me rethink that. Let me pause for a second. Let me rethink that. I don't think I was wise there. I don't think I should have said that. I don't think I should be doing that. Right? It's like you are being given a second, a third, a fourth chance to make that right, to make that different, to make that better. Right? I think it's a wonderful thing. Elizabeth, it's good to see you, my friend. Welcome back. I hope you're doing all right. Guys, we have to wrap up. I'm sorry. Kimberly Gladden, it's so good to have you on the channel. Welcome tonight. It's good to see you. Kimberly says, I can relate to this so much. Yes, I had a feeling, excuse me, I had a feeling that most of you could relate to this tonight. For those of you that I didn't get to, forgive me. Know that I see you. Know that I hear you. After 2 hours, usually I take a 2-hour break from social media after my live chats because I'm just exhausted. I usually come back. I read the entire live chat because I go back over and I watch the chat. And I look at your comments. You know, I love watching what you guys are saying and doing and how you interact with each other. Sometimes I laugh out loud. My mother and my brother, they look over at me like, are you all right? Do you need anything? Are you doing all right? Are you getting sleep at night? Because I'm cracking up in the kitchen, or I'm just like, or I'm at work doing paperwork some days and I'm like, revisiting the chat box. So know that I see you, know that I hear you. For those of you who contribute to the channel financially, you contribute with memberships, the list goes on. I'm so grateful for you. Thank you. Come join me tomorrow. We're going to talk about being ashamed of your family, the psychology behind that. What does research say about shame and family? How does that impact you? What does life look like when you're ashamed of your family? What does life look like moving forward after you've walked away from a family that you're ashamed of, right? And what is the psychology behind that? So we're going to talk about that tomorrow. Guys, I love you so much. Hope you have a wonderful Friday night, a safe one too, and I'll see you tomorrow night. Good night, guys.